The Journal Sentinel reporting a private school participating in the Milwaukee Parental Choice Program abruptly closed in the middle of December, but not before collecting more than $200,000 from taxpayers this academic year. Life Skills Academy, a K-8 school, had, by the way, only one student who was proficient in reading, closed in the dead of night. They moved out, as people say, in the dead of night, Father Carl Dietrichs of All Saints said. And they list the school's leader as Taryn Monroe and her husband Rodney. They got $633,000 in voucher payments last year and $202,000 this year, collected more than $2 million in total public payments, and they vanished. And then they popped up down in Florida, living in a gated community on the waterfront, and they've apparently opened a new private school down in Florida. I find this very, very strange. And then we look at some of these studies here. Western Michigan University's Evaluation Center found that charter schools in Michigan, quote, posted significantly lower scores and less consistent gains on state standardized tests. A study in Ohio found, quote, falling short of traditional public schools in the majority of comparable performance measures, concluding that charter schools were doing no better than low-performing traditional public schools with similar demographic characteristics. Study in North Carolina, quote, charter schools were lagging behind traditional public schools in achievement growth. 2010 study commissioned by the federal government and Mathematica found that students who won lotteries to attend 36 charter middle schools across the country performed on average no better in math and reading than their peers. So why would anybody support these voucherized schools that Eric Cantor is telling? He's basically threatening the new mayor of New York. He says, if you don't do more of these private for-profit schools so our buddies can make a buck, we're going to have congressional hearings. Bob Bowdon is on the line. He's the executive director of ChoiceMedia.tv, a school reform advocate, pro-school choice, charter schools, vouchers, merit pay, and other types of education reform. ChoiceMedia.tv is the website. Hey, Bob, welcome to the program.
Good evening, Tom. Good to be here.
Why would you, unless you're making a buck off this, why would you advocate a system where in order to educate kids, you have to also be skimming some money off the top for profit?
Well, I think what you've done is cited a few anecdotes that are rare and suggested that kind of represents the school choice movement generally, and I think that's not the case. And part of the evidence that's not the case is that millions of parents, more and more every year, keep lining up for these school options because in so many instances, the regular public district schools are worse than the worst nightmare stories that you have to cite for the school choice effort.
I have some familiarity with this. I started a private school, my wife and I, back in 1978, and we're on the board of it. In fact, we had one of the kids who's a student in that school on the air today on this show. And I've been on the board of that program for over 30 years. But it's a non-profit organization. I take no money from it. We have no stockholders. Nobody makes a buck off it. Every dollar that goes to them, if it's a donation, it goes right to whatever they're doing, and if it's tuition, it goes right to the school services. And the people who work there are, I can guarantee you, they're not getting rich. We got no $100,000 salary kind of things going on here. I look at some of these private schools. We have some friends out in California who are running private schools in Southern California, and they're making $250,000 a year. As individuals, as the head of the school. This boggles my mind.
There certainly can be elite private schools that charge whatever they want, and I don't think that even most in the traditional American left would be against that and would be telling Barack Obama, you have to send your kid to a public school.
I'm not saying that there should not be private schools and there should not be boarding schools like George W. Bush went to. What is that, Andover Academy or whatever? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I shouldn't have to pay for it.
Right. So I think usually when you cite those kinds of super high salaries as you've done, it's an example not of publicly funded schools. It's usually examples of elite private academies. But look, I could go all day long also talking to you about, say, Sally Jo Widmer, an upstate New York Teachers Union president that stole over $800,000 in money. You could call it public money. You could call it union money.
Is she in jail?
Pardon?
Is she in jail?
She died. They learned about this after her death. In fact,
but she would have gone to jail, right?
Who knows? She seemed to keep it hidden.
Well, if she embezzled money from the school, she would have gone to jail. But the people who are running your for-profit schools and are putting hundreds of thousands of dollars in their pockets, they're not going to jail.
No,
but they're asking. They want to put their hand in my pocket and take more of my money to pay for for your schools.
No. There's a difference between stealing money, right, and making money, legally. That's a distinction. But I'm just saying.
Well, that's why I think this should be illegal.
On either side, and you've given just the anecdotes of basically the sort of the school choice movement. We have all kinds of examples in Los Angeles. A school that was built for a single high school cost $500 million. That was built in 2010 at the site of the former Ambassador Hotel where RFK was assassinated. That site in Los Angeles. Basically, contractors left and right walked away with money shoved in their pockets because of the traditional public school system where it's a monopoly environment, and generally the thesis there is spending in and of itself is good. The more we spend, the better it is. It's kind of an inputs way to assess public education and how we should allocate resources. And there are a lot of people who just believe the more money thrown at this, the better.
Isn't the solution for that, though, local school boards? If you don't like the way that money is being spent on schools in your school district, join the school board. Run for the school board. I mean, the public schools are publicly supervised. They're answerable to the voters. Private schools are answerable to stockholders who are saying, how much money did you make for me this week off those children?
If you were right, then there wouldn't be mostly Black and Hispanic parents lining up in inner cities for choices in like charter schools and like vouchers in the states that have them. These are low-income parents.
But what they're finding wait a minute, you're mixing apples and oranges. You've got people who are lining up for public charter schools that are not for profit.
Both.
that are run, but the private charter schools, they do not have the kind of track record that the public charter schools do, and the for-profit charter schools have the worst of those track records.
First of all, that's not true.
It certainly is in New York State, New York City.
Well, first of all, most of the charter schools in the country are nonprofits. There's only about 10 to...
Right, they're run by school districts, so you guys can't even claim them.
No. Many are not run by the school district. Many are run by nonprofit charter school operators. So that's the first thing. Something like 90% are nonprofits. So we're talking about a minority. Secondly, even in places where there are more for-profit charters, like the state of Michigan, for example, where about 80% are for-profit, studies there have shown that they've done actually better than the nonprofit charter schools. The bottom line is parents generally don't ask the first question of, well, what is the tax status of the school that my kid might get into? Well, that's what I'm really focused on. What they're interested in is does the school have a good reputation? Do the teachers care? Do they work hard? Those kinds of issues are what the parents are evaluating, and that's why you have long waiting lists. The parents want in those schools.
Would you not acknowledge that education should not be a for-profit business, that we shouldn't be making a buck off educating our kids?
The fact is, I think it's a canard to suggest that traditional public schools don't make a buck. Are the people who work there working there for free? What about the contractors?
They're not living on dividends. You don't have capitalists running those private schools. You have workers, people who are, by the way, as I said earlier, answerable to the local community.
Well, the point is that everyone involved in the system, the supplier of textbooks, desks, gym equipment for the recess area, the people who build the buildings, as well as the staff who runs the school, the janitors, the teachers, they're all paid money for their participation, okay?
Yeah, but the
bottom line is if you're right, and the private tiny portion of charters that are for-profit, if they were terrible, there'd be no parents picking those schools.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Why they're doing that if these schools, if they're so resource-starved to shove the money in their own pockets and line their pockets, that they're draining so many resources out of the school.
Bob, you get the last word.